getting off to an early start. It's Friday, October 9th, 2020. You may find this, years from its making, but it's important now. And one of the things that's going on is that the enemy FBI service has claimed that they foiled a Massachusetts kidnapping, when in reality, they're allowing kidnappers of our national establishment to operate openly in what for them is the best of all worlds. They kidnapped the symbol of the White House, disciplic succession, tortured this object as a child, and then claimed that their victim did it to themselves. So the story that they pretend to have created has about it a Bohemian Grove cleanse, very similar to what Trump pulled when he, took COVID-19 deliberately, and very similar to what the Congress pulled when they promoted Barack Obama as a black man to mitigate and offset bad will about the legacy of slavery and the heritage of the United States. And there's a number of reasons I'm not buying. When you look at Oswald, Oswald was a namesake of Oswald Mosley, the leader of the British Union of Fascists. He was also a namesake of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which we know what that meant to Texas hillbillies who were using attack prostitution, as is commonplace for people like Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. So Kennedy was pictured with Marilyn Monroe, and you have these hubba hubba scenes among the Lee Marvin deputies in the Dallas Police Department after Kennedy was shot, apparently with the help of his doll's house wife, who was planted on him by the white Russian intelligence services who were behind Nazi Germany. So you have this situation of making a sexual mockery of a man who they exhibition for the detonation of the new Hollywood. People like George Romero went on the script, the blowing up of Kennedy's head, and then the zombies eating off people's arms was part of the new logos that they were introducing to American psychological hygiene in the entertainment industry. Meanwhile, they uploaded these learned people who were going to preside in judgment, like Martin Sheen and Mitch McConnell, Ruth Ginsburg, and so forth, all of whom were in on the plan. Now, the Opium War element that the British had perfected was to blow away the educational establishment and then begin promoting reckless abandon while drumming up the rank and file for an immoral foreign war where they could get hold of princesses wriggling and squealing in their arms and opium to shuttle back and forth to New York while claiming patriotism and bombing harbors among poor countries who were trying to be civilized and so forth. And of course, they were building militia, backlot alliances with like the Black Panthers and stuff. I mean, it's common knowledge that the KKK and the Black militant extreme have always slopped Vav and exchanged drugs and demolition services while parading as, masculine, chivalrous people. And this is just an act. What they did was they promoted this Opium War through the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, mayhem services by Her Majesty's government, and then uploaded these vice detectives right behind them, so it was like, go out, go out, party, and then the vice detective comes. And they were the same people. I mean, you have Lenin, spreading acid, spreading heroin, spreading sex, and then you have this weasel, Robert Fripp from King Crimson, coming and saying, what did you do? We're going to observation you. So you have this situation of people, and they were friends, they were partners. Ian MacDonald lived in the Dakota with John Lennon. He's a friend of Donald Trump. Trump was a friend of Warhol. It's ridiculous to say this wasn't one big happy family getting over. But the observation element came when they kidnapped and tortured the symbol of the United States presidency. They made it into an observation tower. They made lifelong sexual advances so that they could burlesque the trauma of the neurological injury. Break it up, laugh, trauma, seizures. Lights, camera, seizures. Lights, camera, seizures. A Truman Show from Trump against the little boy, all promoted as Operation Little Girl, which was the AIDS attack. Now, reality and myth come into conflict when you look at 1984. Neil Postman says 1984 wasn't about George Orwell. It was about Aldous Huxley. That's a laugh. Aldous Huxley was the one who preached against overpopulation. He was a foreign English weirdo like Brian Eno, you know. He was the eccentric gentry who had, you know, full comprehension of the totality and so forth, you know. But Aldous Huxley wrote Brave New World. 1984, Neil Postman said to the Collins of the world, no, it's not 1984, and he never mentions AIDS, which was, I mean, what was 1984 about 1984? And it looked superficially like they were trying, the gays were being very magnanimous. They were trying to panic them into self-destruction at the burning barn. But lo and behold, it turns out, now picture what Donald Trump did. He ran around spreading COVID. You know, if I get it, everybody gets it. It's nothing. It's nothing. You know, they did the same thing. And they were saying, we will not be satisfied until our hostage dies of AIDS. And they're doing injection, saying this is therapy, this is therapy. And this is where Kabbalah comes in, you know, because they were detonating bombs and they killed some Kennedys and they chopped suey this girl in Massachusetts with their remote from the elevator. And this was all part of this vicious observation, a lifelong observation of a hostage. And from WQED and King Crimson. Okay, so where does this go back to historically is something that doesn't get talked about very much. I don't know if it's an embarrassment to the Kings or to the NAACP. But Martin Luther King was being pressured to run with Dr. Benjamin Spock. His conscientious objection had him put on trial around the time that the Chicago 7 were put on trial. So Spock and King, what's highly illogical? Because you associate Spock with Mr. Spock. What's highly illogical is nonviolence and sexual license. So you have Mr. Rogers coming down and, you know, looking like Spock himself in those days, intoning how to teach children about the murder of Robert Kennedy, because basically Robert Kennedy had already fallen from the church by becoming, you know, the heretic of a demonic establishment like the President of the United States, you know. So you have this situation where they're killing Kennedys and sacrificing symbols in the name of this Kabbalah. And all of it drums down to Yoko Ono claiming that she has the rights down to a penny. I mean, they slasher murdered Shannon Harps over a penny in Seattle. And that's what you have to get through your head, is these murderers who release AIDS are claiming they represent the victims in slasher murdering bystanders, claiming the money is theirs, the money is theirs. Yoko Ono demands justice for the disappearance of John Lennon from an innocent person while working with the people who wrote the script. That's an unsolvable paradox to people who have not studied the facts. The facts are that they created a delusion machine. They created a delusion machine where that old story about Paul is dead is a trial run. I'll give you an example of how sure I am of that. Notice that this book is about a tribe in Alaska. It's written by someone named Oswald. That's for the synesthesia of Oswald and Walt Disney. Okay? And if you look into Bernie S., you find there's a Bernie Slobodniak. So what's that mean? A slob who's a maniac, right? That's the walrus. So they torture this kid and keep telling him they love him so they can detonate the neuroplasm and you have the slob maniac, right? And this is the walrus. And Ruth Ginsburg chopped somebody on her deathbed to show that they mean it. You know, they don't care if it's murder. They know it is, you know, but they have the power. And Yoko Ono is uploading her power ship after murdering these candidates, and they killed Cersei gratuitously. You know, oh, there's what you think we're not serious, ha ha ha. We'll kill another one for you. You know, so that's how they operate, and that's what we're dealing with, and it's a lifelong syndicate. And they go back to what I was saying about the enemy FBI. It's the best of all worlds for them. They kidnapped and tortured a symbol of the presidency, and then claimed he did it to himself. That's one of the reasons why the Japanese were so eager to pay anything to get Van Gogh's sunflowers, because the sunflowers was revenge for the flowers that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You did it to yourself. And this is all enemy poetry bullshit that comes from a little cluster of people. It's not a whole bunch of people. It's not world civilization. It's a little Nazi core of the British royal family who's doing this stuff. And you have Angela Dickinson, which is Angela D. Notice that all of these black honchos who are open mic bullies, we will kill you for telling the truth. Angela D. And to have a signifier from the Old South. It's a Ku Kluxogram that's inclusive of black people. Angela Davis, Aaron Dixon. And then they steal the name of Clemente for their purposes, right? Like Roberto would go along with the rape of a deaf girl because they didn't give her AIDS. Oh, gee, that's mathematics from the dialectical UWists, you know, here in Andrew Cho country of Tacoma. So there's no way to get around. They used to say, the Klan used to say, state ways can't change folk ways. That means you're never going to stop muckraking. When they exhibition, the second death of Huey Long was when they just lied about him. You know, they put out the Warren Commission, Robert Penn Warren's, you know, all the King's men. And of course it was the King who was doing it, King Edward. All the King's men. And they said, oh, that's about Huey Long. It had nothing to do with Huey Long. It was a total fiction. But they managed to get this duplicity going for the Oswald Disney show, where people couldn't tell truth from reality. And you know, they advertised it. You only live twice opens with James Bond is dead as a headline in the newspaper. They advertised it. You know, this is what we're going to do. With the brooding new secrecies we can keep under the floorboards of executive media. You know, yeah, the brooding new secrets that we can keep under the spy floorboards of executive media. And that's what they did. And they're trying to turn a civilized country into a cyclops throwing boulders. Now, that's the whole idea of man is man. Oh, you think it can't happen here? We'll do it here. And then what are you going to say, dog eyes? And they left all of these treasure tracks. And you don't have any civilized people. They say, oh, civilization is to stand up for the black man. It doesn't have anything to do with black men. There were black men who were promoting this stuff. Colin Powell was in on all of this stuff. You know, this is about power for them. They want license to eliminate the low and downtrodden while promoting a cabala of symbols from each racial sect. You know, that's why they have this eugenic sale about Kamala Harris, is that, you know, she's a eugenic specimen. You know, I mean, she's a person. Typically, you would think in a normal society, we would just look at everybody as persons. But this stuff emerged at an elite private college called Carnegie Mellon under Bush. Okay, and the illusion about me, they went in and neurohypnotized programmed to try to get me, try to force me to be a person I'm not, right? And then they said, that's who you are, that's who you are. And through the Seattle left, The Seattle left is just playing dress up. Those people are from an elite Ivy League school. I've never lived above the poverty line. But they are cashing in on such a big project with me that they slash or murdered somebody over a penny and made injection threats with the people who've been proven to have released the AIDS attack. So the censoriousness is a bunch of bullshit. The illusion is much more important to them than the reality. And they're going to put words in your mouth. That's the way they are. And it's like they can't tell the difference between Mephisto and the White Rose. Let me explain what the difference between the Mephisto and the White Rose was. For them, the White Rose is Mephisto. When the teacher who was in alignment with Sophie Scholl was taken before the Nazi judgment courts, in other words, before the Green Party executive stuff, the judge, he said, I'm not a political person, I'm a teacher. The judge said, then you're not a person at all. You know, and that was the Nazis' dehumanization. If you aren't a political agency, then you die. And the Seattle left, of course, is doing the exact same thing. They say to people who are resisting that they are not people, that they should be exterminated. Okay, now Mephisto, by contrast, was somebody who put on a performance for the Nazis, but himself didn't do anything bloodthirsty to anybody. He had a black lover and stuff. So you have this situation where they're promoting the idea that somebody who goes along with Nazi Germany is the same as somebody who resists Nazi Germany, because the people who resist Nazi Germany are standing up to them rather than what they are telling them to stand up for. And that meanwhile, these people are disallowing anybody from knowing what's really going on at all.